They slapped a lien on my land, tried to auction off 500 acres of my family's ranch, and threatened me with foreclosure. But what this HOA didn't know is that they just picked a fight with the wrong cowboy. They thought they could steal my heritage, but they ended up losing everything. My name is Jed, and for generations, my family has owned the Black Creek Ranch. We're talking about a sprawling 2,000-acre property that's been in our bloodline since my great-great-grandfather first staked his claim here. Life was simple, quiet, and peaceful. We worked the land, respected our neighbors, and minded our own business. That all changed when a new housing development, Willow Creek Estates, popped up on our eastern border. At first, we didn't pay it much mind. New folks moving in, building their cookie-cutter houses. It wasn't our concern. We just kept to ourselves, figuring they'd do the same. But then came the letters. It started with a friendly-looking envelope in my mailbox, stamped with the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association logo. I opened it out of curiosity. It was a welcome to the neighborhood letter, which was strange since we'd been here for over a century. The letter politely informed me of the community's aesthetic standards, things like lawn maintenance, fence height, and color palettes. I chuckled, crumpled it up, and tossed it. My ranch had more important things to worry about than the color of my barn. But then another letter arrived a week later. This one wasn't so friendly. It was a formal notice of violation, citing my unapproved agricultural structures, my barns, and the non-compliant fencing, which was the barbed wire we used to keep our cattle from wandering onto the highway. The letter demanded I remedy these violations within 30 days, or face a fine of $100 per day. I was stunned. I wasn't a member of their HOA. My ranch wasn't part of their fancy little development. I drove over to the address listed for the HOA president, a woman named Brenda. Her house was immaculate, with a perfectly manicured lawn that looked like a green carpet. Brenda answered the door, a clipboard in hand and a sour expression on her face. I explained the mistake, holding up the letter. "Ma'am," I said calmly, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. My ranch isn't part of your HOA." She just smiled, a cold, condescending smile. "Oh, but you are," she said, tapping her pen on her clipboard. "When the development was zoned, the county included a parcel that borders our community. Your property falls under our jurisdiction now. The bylaws are quite clear." I told her that was impossible, that my deed was ironclad. She just shrugged and said, "You can fight it, but you'll lose. Now, about that unsightly fence." That was the moment I knew this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was a land grab, plain and simple. The fines started piling up. First, it was the fence and the barns. Then it was for my commercial vehicles, my ranch trucks. They even fined me for unapproved livestock, visible from their precious community. Every week, a new violation, a new fine. I ignored them, of course. I sent them a certified letter from my lawyer clarifying my property lines and stating unequivocally that I was not subject to their authority. They responded by placing a lien on my property for the unpaid fines, which had now ballooned to over $50,000. It was insane. This woman, this HOA Karen, was trying to use bureaucratic nonsense to steal a piece of my family's legacy. It escalated when I got a notice of foreclosure. They were actually trying to force a sale of a portion of my ranch, a 500-acre parcel that bordered their development, to satisfy the lien. That was it. The line had been crossed. This wasn't about fines anymore. This was war. I knew I couldn't fight them on their turf. Playing by their ridiculous rules was a losing game. So, I went back to the source. I spent days at the county records office, digging through deeds, zoning maps, and historical surveys going back 150 years. My lawyer thought I was crazy, but I had a hunch. After endless hours staring at dusty old maps, I found it. It was a tiny, almost invisible notation on the original survey from 1888. It was an easement, a forgotten public right-of-way that cut directly through the land where Willow Creek Estates now stood. It had been established for cattle drives, a historic route to the old railway depot. And the best part? It had never been legally dissolved. This little path on an old map connected my ranch directly to the main highway, bisecting their entire development. According to state law, a historic public easement like this had to be respected. My smile was as wide as the Texas sky. Brenda wanted to play by the rules. Fine. Let's play by the old rules. The next morning, I did something my great-great-grandfather would have been proud of. I rounded up about 200 head of my finest, most vocal longhorn cattle. At the crack of dawn, my ranch hands and I began our historic cattle drive. We herded them right down that old easement path, the one that now happened to be Willow Creek Lane, Primrose Path, and Buttercup Boulevard. We trampled over their perfect lawns, left cow pies on their pristine driveways, and our herd's mooing was a far cry from the chirping birds they were used to. Panic erupted. People in silk pajamas were running out of their houses, screaming at the sight of a dozen massive longhorns munching on their prize-winning rose bushes. Brenda came sprinting out of her house, her face purple with rage. She shrieked, "What is the meaning of this? You're destroying our property." I just tipped my hat from atop my horse. "Just exercising my legal right, ma'am," I said with a grin. "Historic cattle drive. It's in the county records. You're the one who told me the bylaws are quite clear." She started sputtering, threatening to call the police. "Go ahead," I said. "I've already got the sheriff on standby." He found the old easement laws quite fascinating. When the sheriff's deputies arrived, they took one look at my paperwork, at the frantic HOA residents, and at Brenda, who was practically vibrating with fury, and they just shrugged. They informed her that I was, in fact, within my rights, and that any attempt to interfere with my cattle drive was a violation of state law. Her jaw hit the perfectly paved ground. We spent the rest of the day slowly, and I mean very slowly, herding our cattle through their neighborhood. The HOA board called an emergency meeting that night. The next morning, the lien on my property was gone. All fines were dropped, and I received a formal written apology, along with a promise that the Willow Creek Estates HOA would never, ever contact me again. The best part? A few weeks later, a for sale sign went up in front of Brenda's house. Turns out, living next to a fully operational cattle path wasn't part of her suburban dream. Sometimes, you just have to remind people that you can't pave over history. If you enjoyed seeing this HOA get what it deserved, you won't believe what happened when a developer tried to build a golf course in the middle of my pasture. Subscribe and hit that notification bell, because the next story is even wilder. Thanks for watching.